Hey everyone, how are we doing today? I've been wanting to make a grip video for a little while because I found in my teaching that I'm getting a lot of questions about it, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion. But I definitely noticed in my last video on the forehand drive that there were a ton of comments about specific grip questions. What grip do I use? Do I switch my grip for my forehand? So I thought it'd be a good time to finally cover all that. I want to go over everything from basic grips all the way to some detailed nuances and a lot of little things that I maybe haven't heard other people talk about before. Okay, so I want to cover 4 things in the grip today. First, we're going to go over just the grip basics, the two types of grip that almost everybody uses, advantages and disadvantages of each. Second, we're going to talk about grip pressure. I get a ton of questions about this and some comments also in a lot of my lessons. Grip pressure seems to be a big topic that everyone's interested in. Third, we're going to talk about finger or no finger. Again, there's no right and wrong there, but we're going to talk about advantages and disadvantages of each style. And finally, we're going to answer the question, should you be changing your grip or shouldn't you? And that's going to kind of lead us into some of these secret little tips that I have for you that I think might help clarify and answer that question. Okay, so first let's just talk basic grip options. Really, there's only 2 styles of grip that probably 99% of people use. That is the continental grip and the Eastern grip. So I'm going to give you a couple ways to kind of find each grip. First, let's talk about the easier, kind of more general way. The easiest way to think about it is your continental grip. Your hand is going to be a little more on top of the paddle, like you're using your paddle as a hammer. So you're going to feel like you can hit the edge of your paddle into the table. In an Eastern grip, our hand is going to feel like it's shaking hands. So if you shake hands with someone, you're more on the side. You're going to be grabbing the side of the paddle a little bit more. Feel like you're shaking hands with the paddle. Okay? Now, there's a more specific way to find this as well. This kind of comes from tennis. This is how we teach it in tennis. But if you look at the bottom of a butt cap, they all have 8 sides to them, okay? So, and we number them 1 through 8. And we find our grip by looking at what we call our base knuckle. So that would be the top knuckle on your first finger, okay? And where that lands determines what grip you're in. So, if I put my base knuckle on bevel 2, which is the second one over from the top, that's gonna be your kind of standard continental grip. If you move that base knuckle over to bevel 3, the one that's flat right on the side here, that's going to be more of your Eastern grip. So there are some other kind of outlier grips out there that people use, but the reason these are the main 2 is because these 2 grips are neutral enough to allow you to hit a forehand and a backhand without having massive grip changes. Put pretty simply, the advantage and disadvantage of each, the more you go over the top and get closer to a continental grip, I think is going to favor your backhand. It makes it easier to hit a backhand and a little tougher wrist position to hit a forehand. The more you go to an Eastern grip, makes it easier to hit forehands, especially topspin forehands, and a little tougher to hit backhands. Okay, so you got to kind of find what's right for you. Me personally, when I started playing pickleball, I was in more of a continental. As I've gone over the last kind of 3 to 4 years, I've slowly switched more and more to being Eastern. A big part of that is I'm a singles player. My topspin forehand is a big part of my game. So my suggestion to you is play with your grips kind of within that range and try to feel kind of what feels comfortable and what feels best for you. Next up, grip pressure. So this is a big one. I get this question all the time. People always asking me about grip pressure. What should my grip pressure be? Should I be changing my grip pressure? Okay, so here's how we're gonna find our grip pressure. The basic thing that we're looking for in our grip pressure is to keep tension in our wrist and then have no tension the rest of the way up our arm. Okay, so the easiest way to find this, grab your paddle, start squeezing. Let's see if we can see this here. Start squeezing, and you're gonna notice a point to where your forearm starts to tense up. You see these muscles start to move and tense. Okay, once you've got forearm tension, you're squeezing too tight. So the easiest way to find good grip pressure is tense enough till you feel that, and then back it off until you feel your forearm release. You should still feel some firmness in your wrist. Okay, so again, we're looking for firm wrist, loose the rest of the way up the arm. If your forearm is tense, it's going to create tension all the way up your arm into your shoulder, and that is going to affect your game pretty greatly. Okay, next up, let's talk finger, no finger. Okay, you see a lot of people playing with the finger up. You see a lot of people playing with it down, more of a tennis style grip. Again, this is a situation where there's really no right or wrong. There's just advantages and disadvantages to each way of doing it. Okay, so here's what the advantages and disadvantages are. When your finger is on the handle, on the paddle face, basically what that does is it creates a firmer wrist, and it creates everything being kind of a little more solid from the wrist all the way through the paddle. Okay, so probably what you'll notice is you'll probably notice more control in your dinking, in your drops, your resets. A lot of shots that you need good feel and touch for are going to be a little better or feel a little easier with that finger up there, because you're going to feel like everything is more stable. Okay, you'd think that would be a huge advantage, and it is, but the advantage you get of moving that finger off the paddle and down to the bottom is basically just the opposite. Now we have access to more wrist movement. Okay, so as you move up in levels, you want to access being able to snap your wrist. Roll volleys, flick shots, forehand drives. There's a lot of shots where wrist action is going to play a role in you being able to hit a little quicker shot. When we have the finger up there, our wrist is going to be stabilized more, and you're not going to get as much on those shots. Okay, last big one here, and really a lot of the questions that I got on my forehand drive video, and that is, do you switch your grip, or can you switch your grip in the middle of a point? Before we get into that, we're going to talk about our secret tip that we talked about at the beginning, because these concepts are connected. When we first described our basic grips, our continental and our eastern grip, we talked about the base knuckle and where it's going to align on the paddle. Okay. Now, what I don't see talked about very much is how the rest of the hand lays on the paddle. Okay, so potentially I could put my base knuckle right here on bevel 2, hold it like this, and this would be classified to most coaches as a continental grip because my base knuckle is in the right spot. The problem is I'm holding the paddle like a club. My hand is going straight across it, and the paddle is basically sitting like in the palm of my hand, which is not going to put it at a very good angle. It's not going to feel very, very maneuverable. And I see this a lot when I work with beginners because they're just grabbing onto the paddle like this. Technically, they're in the right grip because their base knuckle is in the right spot, but the rest of the hand is in the wrong alignment. Okay, so first thing we want to do is make sure our hand is aligned properly. Okay, so wherever your base knuckle is, if you turn your hand around and open it up, you should notice that the paddle is going across your hand like this and not straight across like this. So we're looking for this, and we want the paddle to be kind of more in the fingers and in the top of our hand. Okay. The other way to think about this is when you turn it over this way, your base knuckle is going to be in its position for whatever grip, but the rest of your knuckles should go at an angle across the grip. So again, this would be the proper continental. This would be the proper Eastern. We do not want to hold it like this or like this, which again, I have seen quite a bit. The other way you can think about this is what we call a trigger finger. So if you get this finger, you put it up like that, and then you bring it down just to put it kind of on the grip so that's touching the side of your grip. That's gonna also get you in that kind of sideways hand position that we need to be in. So if you're doing that, you should now feel like your paddle's a little more maneuverable, okay? So now let's get back into grip switching. I don't like to see massive grip switches because I think there's not a lot of time for it. But one little trick that I use is I'm in my grip, okay? I'm in my grip like this. I will slightly shift the bottom of my hand to match the shot that I want. Because it can change the way the paddle sits in my hand. So if I'm hitting a forehand, I'm gonna be here. If I wanna hit a backhand, the paddle, I don't know if you can see that, the bottom of my hand will shift a little bit to kind of slightly change the paddle angle. So now I can hit a backhand comfortably and a forehand comfortably, and I'm not technically switching my grip, I'm just shifting kind of how my hand sits on it, okay? So, the big takeaway here, we want this angle as our standard grip, but as you get to a higher level and you start to hit some different roll shots, you want to create some spin on some different shots, we can start to kind of mess with how the bottom of your hand, palm, sits on the paddle, and that's going to give you a little more flexibility from shot to shot without having to do a full grip switch from continental to Eastern. I think that's where you can get into some problems. So that is my recommendation to kind of get the best of both worlds. Again, my personal grip, Eastern, with no finger on the paddle, and from forehand to backhand, I'm doing a slight switch in how I kind of shift the bottom of the paddle in my hand. As always, let me know if you have any questions. I hope I covered everything as far as the grip goes, but let me know if there's anything I didn't cover. I always love to hear the feedback and questions, and I will see you next time. Thanks.